It's me, Tyler Thrasher. I will be partaking in the Philbrook Museum of Art's Creative Distancing series. I was asked to put together a 2 to 10 minute tutorial on something you can do while you are helping flatten the curve by staying at home. So, what am I going to be teaching you? While you're sitting at home, you're probably, hopefully, surrounded by plants. And while you're surrounded by plants, hopefully those plants are growing and thriving. And if so, I'm going to walk you through how to turn one plant into an undefined exponential amount of plants through something that's called propagation. Propagating is the technique and the method of taking a sample of a plant and using its DNA and its hormones to produce more plants. So an example of that is taking a cutting and rooting out a cutting and then establishing that cutting in its own pot so you can turn one plant into 2 plants. The plant I'm going to use as an example is this plant right here. It's called the monstera adansonii. It's a good one to start with because some of its sections and some of its different growing points are very obvious. For instance, when I talked about rooting out a plant, you'll notice that some plants put out what are called aerial roots. And aerial roots are these little nubs right here, these little nubs, and they are what come out of the plant to cling onto rough surfaces or trees, to climb and help put on more girth and size and more mature leaves. If you have a plant like this, or a philodendron, or almost any other aroid, almost, for that matter, or most houseplants can put out visible roots and sections where you can cut, what you're going to do is you're going to take a pair of scissors. These scissors were recently cleaned. You want to sterilize your cutting implements or whatever tools you're using with a mixture of water and isopropyl alcohol, or just dish soap if you don't have isopropyl alcohol. And essentially, you're just going to take your scissors, you're going to take the plant you want to propagate and make more of, and you're going to cut at a section where you're left with enough stem and a root node where the roots will grow as you root your plant out. And so I'm going to take this section right here, and I'll show you a closer look of what I'm doing. I'm just going to cut, clean cut. And if your instruments and your cutting tools are clean and sterile, you shouldn't have any problems with rot or infection. So you can see where I had cut, and you see this section right here. You have the leaf, and then you have this node where the roots grow out. When I go to root this plant out, this is where the roots will grow. Now you can see a second segment right there, and if I wanted, I could cut the plant right here, and I would have these 2 segments, and that could make 2 plants. I'm not going to do that. My preferred method of rooting out a cutting is water propagation. Just clean distilled water or rainwater if you have it. That's what works best in my situation, in my experience. And you're going to place your cutting, your fresh cutting, in that clean water. And I have a cutting to show you what happens after a while. This has been rooting in this pot for about 2 weeks, and you can see the massive aerial roots that are starting to grow and form in this water. And this is a mixture of distilled water and rainwater with a little bit of fish emulsion, fertilizer, which is fish poop. And that's all I do. Once I have my cutting, and go ahead and just pull this guy out. Once my cutting is well rooted, I will take my regular potting soil, whatever it is you use for that plant, and I'll get a fresh pot and I'll pot it up just like normal. Once it starts putting out a healthy amount of roots, then it's good to pot up. And you can even see a new growing point on this monstera. So it's as simple as that, and it's even simpler to take one plant and turn it into as many plants as you have room for with given enough time. But this is an exponential process. You take one cutting, grow another plant, then you cut those 2 cuttings, and then you can see how you can turn one plant, or how some nurseries can fill an entire greenhouse in 5 years with just given a couple of plants. So hopefully you're staying safe. Hopefully this was a fun little informational tidbit, and hopefully you clean some scissors and start chopping some heads.